If you are a foreign citizen buying real estate in São Paulo and you think, I have a realtor so I am covered, this video can save you from a very expensive lesson. I'm Luciano Oliveira, a Brazilian attorney also licensed in California and Texas, and I work with foreign buyers purchasing property in Brazil, including higher value deals in São Paulo. Quick disclaimer, this is general information only, not legal advice and not tax advice. Now let's talk about the trap. In many countries, buyers assume there is someone on their side by default. A buyer's agent, an escrow company, title insurance, a title company, something that creates a safety net even if you're not an expert. In Brazil, and especially in São Paulo, the safety net is not automatic. And the most common mistake I see is this. Foreign buyers assume the realtor represents them the way a buyer's agent might in the US or Canada. In Brazil, most of the time, that's simply not how incentives work. Here is the clean, uncomfortable truth. In Brazil, it is the seller who pays the commission, and the same realtor for the seller will be working with you as the buyer. Many realtors will tell you that they represent both sides, but when the seller is paying the fee, the realtor's interests naturally lean toward keeping the seller happy, keeping the deal moving, and getting to closing. That doesn't mean every realtor is dishonest. It means the system is not designed around a buyer having independent protection. So if you are a foreign buyer and you rely on the realtor as your main protection, you are basically asking the sales channel to be your risk manager. And that brings us to the second misconception. A lot of foreigners think the cartório will protect them. The cartório is a notary closing office. They have an important function, but they are not your advocate. They are not reviewing the deal from your perspective. Their clearance certificates and requirements are minimal and focused on what the government cares about. For example, unpaid taxes or unpaid labor obligations on the seller side, not what you actually care about. In practice, deals can move forward even when there are issues that are undesirable or unsafe for the buyer. So the question isn't, will the deal close? The real question is, should this deal close on these terms, with these risks, and with my money moving on this timeline? That's where having an attorney on your side changes the outcome. Let me make this interesting by giving you 3 examples of real São Paulo deal killers that foreign buyers don't expect, especially when they think a realtor is enough. First, unfinished probate and unfinished divorces. In São Paulo, you can find a beautiful apartment, perfect building, great neighborhood, and then you learn the seller can deliver clean ownership the way you assumed. Maybe the property is still in probate, maybe heirs haven't finalized documents, maybe there is a divorce and the spouse's consent isn't properly resolved. Maybe there is a dispute nobody mentioned because it should be fine. Here's the danger. You can sign a contract, pay deposits, and then discover the seller cannot legally deliver what you thought you were buying on the timeline you need. And now you're not just waiting, now you are exposed. Second, auction properties that still carry reversal risk. Auctions attract foreign investors because they look like a discount. They also attract problems. A property that came from an auction can have missing records, procedural defects, pending challenges, and a real possibility of reversal depending on the specific history of the auction. So if your plan is, I will buy the deal of the century and figure it out later, Brazil is not the country to do so. Because Brazil does not have title insurance, there is no magic policy that saves you if the property's history comes back to bite you later. Third, underreported sale price requests and fraudulent structures. This is one of the most dangerous moments for foreign buyers because it can be presented casually, like it is normal in the Brazilian society. Someone suggests reporting a lower sale price than what you're actually paying to reduce taxes or fees. Let me be very direct. That's fraud. In addition to criminal liability, it creates legal, tax, and compliance exposure. It also creates future problems when you sell, and it creates issues with banks when you're wiring your funds from abroad. If a deal requires you to lie on paper to make it work, it's not a good deal. Walk away. Now, notice that all three sample problems have in common. A realtor cannot fix them. A realtor can find inventory. A realtor can negotiate commercial terms. A realtor can keep a momentum and coordinate logistics. But a realtor is not doing legal diligence the way an attorney does. And even when an agency says they have an in-house legal, you have to understand the conflict. If the lawyer is employed by the agency selling the property, that lawyer is not truly independent counsel for the buyer. So what does an attorney actually do for a foreign buyer in São Paulo? Let me make it concrete. First, we verify the property and the seller the way a serious buyer would if they had a legal team. That includes deed checks, the property's registry history, the seller's capacity to sell, and the kinds of risks that can show up later. Liens, disputes, shared ownership, easements, condominium debt, possession-only rights, and red flags that don't show up in a listing description. Second, we structure the deal correctly for a foreign buyer. A standard local contract might be fine for local buyers who already bank in Brazil, sign locally, and move money domestically. A foreign buyer is different. You may be sending funds from abroad. You may be signing remotely. You may need document legalization. You may need a timeline that accounts for reality. And here's the part foreigners underestimate. Once you sign the purchase agreement, you are committed. If you fail to perform within a strict timeline, you may trigger penalties that can be around 10% or more of the transaction amount plus damages. So if your bank takes longer than you expected, your documents aren't accepted, or your money releases at the wrong time, you're not just annoyed, you are financially exposed. A buyer-side attorney makes sure the contract reflects the reality of foreign funds, foreign documents, and foreign logistics. Third, we manage money timing like it matters, because it does. Foreign buyers often assume they can wire money and control the exact timing of release the way they might in an escrow environment. In Brazil, currency exchange happens through authorized institutions and heavy compliance processes. And if you rely on certain sender bank setups, you can lose control over the release day in Brazil. That creates a serious risk. Money being released too early, before the closing is properly coordinated, before documents are ready, before the deed signing is aligned. We work with partner currency exchange banks in Brazil and coordinate release timing around the closing window so you don't create a dangerous gap between payment and legal transfer. Fourth, we quarterback the closing process. Brazil does not have a title company system that automatically coordinates everyone. So the buyer ends up managing dozens of moving parts unless they hire a team to do it, or guess what? Have the seller's realtor doing it, which is not in your best interest. In a typical transaction, there can be well over 200 points of communication with sellers, realtors, the cartórios, the registry office, banks, document expediters, translators, and other parties. This is where foreign buyers either feel calm or feel trapped. Because when you are remote, time zones and language barriers turn every small delay into a bigger problem. Fifth, we get you to the finish line, which is not signing in Brazil. The finish line is your name recorded as the real owner at the real estate registry. Signing the deed is important, but recording the property in your name is what makes you the owner of record. That's the step that makes your ownership enforceable the way you expect. Now, I want to speak directly to the viewer who is thinking, but my realtor said this is always standard. Of course they did, because if you understood the legal complexity up front, you would slow down. And slowing down threatens momentum. And in a commission-driven system, momentum is oxygen. So here's the best way to think about it. Use the realtor for what realtors are great at: access inventory, negotiation, momentum. Use a buyer's side attorney for what attorneys are great at: protection, risk control, contract leverage, clean closing, and clean title. That combination is how sophisticated buyers purchase safely in São Paulo. If you are buying property in São Paulo and you want to do it the safe, clean way, we can help. We provide A to Z legal support for foreign buyers, from due diligence to contract structuring, bank coordination, closing supervision, and final registration. And we can also refer you to licensed realtors who truly specialize in the type of property you are buying, so you have a strong sales partner without confusing sales support for legal protection. We have a fully staffed office in São Paulo, and the first consultation is typically done remotely, so you can meet our team whether you are in Brazil or abroad. If you found this helpful, please like the video, subscribe, and follow us for more tips.